There's been a lot of super fights lately that have fell through, but we're going to go over the top 5 super fights that never happened and who would have won. So without further ado, let's get started with the first one. We're kind of going chronological order here. We're going GSP vs Anderson Silva. I mean, when you talk about super fights, the first thing that comes to your mind is GSP vs Silva. And I don't have their records pulled up, but I'm assuming this fight would have taken place around 2012 when they were both on huge win streaks. They were both in their prime. They were both killing it. Now, what stopped this fight from happening is GSP didn't want to move up. You know him. He has to be a scientist about his fights. He has to have tons of advantages. Kind of like John Jones, you know? GSP didn't want the smoke. You know what I think? If the fighter doesn't want to fight, they're telling me, hey, the odds aren't on my side, I'm going to lose. So without even getting to the technical breakdown, I'm picking Anderson Silva. Based off the mentality, fighting's mental. If GSP didn't want none, he didn't want none. And it's not like going to 185 is against GSP's morals or anything. He eventually went up to 185 against an old, one-eyed Michael Bisping. But when it comes to prime Anderson Silva, who's knocking people out left and right, he's creating highlight reels every fight, GSP didn't want it. So I'm going Anderson Silva. But if we're technically breaking this down, Anderson Silva would have to use the footwork to stop GSP. GSP would definitely be shooting takedowns. GSP takes you to where you're weakest at. I just think Anderson's footwork would have been too good. His confidence would have been too high. And on the feet, Anderson would have had the moments. If we think about it, around this time frame, prime Johnny Hendricks was piecing up GSP. Now imagine the length and the reach and the unpredictability of an Anderson Silva. GSP had the skills to do it. He has the skills to do what Chael Sonnen did, to do what Chris Weidman did. But mentally, he didn't believe in himself, or else the fight would have happened. Next up. Woo, this is my favorite what-if super fight. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Who the hell would have won? I mean, we're looking at the guy who never gets cut versus the guy who cuts up everybody. We're looking at the guy who never gets tired versus the guy who tires out everybody. We're looking at the guy who has top control, who pins people down, gets them out and rains down ground and pound, versus the guy who taps people out from his back and cuts people up from his guard. The third time they were booked, UFC 209 on the pay-per-view card, I'm picking Tony Ferguson. He was on fire at that time. Khabib was having major weight cut issues. He pulled out in UFC 209. Tony had the mental edge in that fight. Rewatch all the face-offs, all the press conferences. Watch all their fights leading up to UFC 209. Tony had the momentum on his side. You can't deny it. He was giving crazy interviews where he said, I'm going to cut Khabib with my elbows. Khabib said he's going to break my arm. Well, I like holding my son. Khabib wants to stop me from holding my son? Hell no. Tony wouldn't have won that. If Elia Quinta went 5 rounds with Khabib, imagine prime Tony Ferguson with Khabib. Speaking of Khabib, let's keep the Khabib talk going. So we know the Khabib story. He dodged Tony Ferguson. He beat up all the strikers in the division, Conor, Poirier. Then he beat Gaethje. What was left for Khabib to do? There was someone in the crowd waiting to fight Khabib. That someone was named GSP. What would have happened if Khabib fought GSP? Let's start with GSP. GSP was the better athlete. No doubt about it. More athletic. He's better at game planning. It might look like Khabib's great at game planning, but really, he just sticks to what he's good at. He has one game plan. That's walk you down and smash. GSP is more well-rounded, but Khabib honed in on one aspect of martial arts. And that was mixing judo with wrestling, with jiu-jitsu. He was the ultimate grappler. Made you carry his weight, so he had that advantage on the ground. He's more relentless with the takedowns, let's be honest. Khabib doesn't take no for an answer. He would get mount, he would get a variety of pins that GSP never even attempted. I could break this fight down all day, but we got to pick a winner. And when it comes down to this fight, these guys are even. They're even Steven on paper. They're well-rounded. They have everything going for them. But the one deciding factor is when this fight should have happened, Khabib was 31 years old, pound for pound #1, in his prime, active. I believe GSP was 38 years old at the time. Just based off that, that's the one advantage that's glaring to me. I would go Khabib. Even if it was at 170 pounds, GSP, he would have gave Khabib a run for his money. I think it would have went to decision. It would have been a close decision. But Khabib has his number. And I'm talking about age. Alright, enough talk about Khabib. Enough talk about GSP. Let's talk about a heavyweight super fight. Imagine if we got Jon Jones versus Francis Singanu in 2021. That could have been a fight for the ages. I mean, Francis hits like a Ford Escort. Jon Jones hits you with the Ford Escort. Francis also hits you with the motorcycle. Alright, they both got their pros and cons, like every other super fight. But what it comes down to is, who had the balls to step up and fight? Ngannou was ready. Guess who wasn't? Jon Jones. Alright, we got one more super fight. But this fight didn't need to take place when these guys were champions. And the champions I'm talking about are Jose Aldo versus Dominick Cruz. They both had decent title runs. Dominick Cruz got injured a lot. He was still a beast. He beat guys like TJ Dillashaw, etc. Jose Aldo, he was beating Chad Mendes. He was beating Frankie Edgar. He was beating a lot of top-notch guys. Around 2021, after these guys lost their belts, they went on a second run. Dominick Cruz went on a win streak. He was beating up guys. Jose Aldo went on a win streak. He was beating up guys. Dominick Cruz has some advantages. His footwork. The way he mixes in the takedowns. He could switch it up more. Jose Aldo, though, he's the better boxer. He's got better hands. He's definitely got the speed advantage, too. He's a fast motherfucker. And Aldo's got the power advantage. He really does. But I think his hands would have been too fast. Dominick Cruz throws overhands. Jose Aldo's got great head movement. He could slip and rip, especially to the body. Those body shots would pay dividends against Cruz. People lose against Cruz because they're aiming for the head. But Dominick Cruz is a master of movement. It's hard to hit his head. But you know what Dominick Cruz cannot move? Is his body. His body stays in one spot. You can move your head all you want, but your body's there to be hit. And Jose Aldo's a master of landing body shots. He slips and rips with the body hooks. I think Aldo would have won an amazing decision. He would have had his hands full as well, but that would have been a banger of a fight. I do got one honorable mention though. Now, this is very hypothetical. We're assuming they're both in their primes. I'm talking the two scariest heavyweights ever. I'm talking Brock Lesnar versus Francis Ngannou. We got the scariest wrestler. If this guy gets on top of you, you're done. It's like getting ran over. But Francis, if he even touches you with his pinky knuckle, you're getting decapitated. Now this fight was so intriguing, not only because they look like Marvel action figures, not only because they look like they're juiced to the gills, but because they can both expose each other's weakness. What's Francis Ngannou's kryptonite? Getting taken down over and over and over again until the point of exhaustion. What's Brock Lesnar's weakness? Getting hit in the face, getting punched super hard, flush on the chin. He hates that. We've seen it against Cain Velasquez. He exposed Brock's weakness, and Stipe exposed Francis's weakness. These guys both had a 50-50 shot of whooping each other. And if they're both in their primes, man, does Ngannou get taken down and ground and pounded? Or does Brock Lesnar get hit with an uppercut while he's shooting for a takedown and goes flying across the cage? Wow. I'm going to leave that one up to you guys. You guys tell me, who would have won?